Hey y'all, welcome to this video about how to define software definitions for Install Doctor. For those of you who don't know what Install Doctor is, it's a multi-OS provisioning framework. And one of the features it has is the ability to install software on any operating system. So what's involved with this is creating these little maps. So we have right here, we have a program called Tree. And if I were using the CLI for install doctor, I would enter something like this at the command line, install program tree. And then the installer would look at this file and it would scan through here and it would see, ooh, okay, I can install tree with homebrew, with apt-get, with chocolatey. So um, this file needs to be maintained and the software definitions need to be updated sometimes, not so often. It's usually just about populating them at the beginning. So let's say you are adding a new definition. We're going to go to Trivy because I know this one's missing something. So let's just delete this out of here. Actually, we can just leave some of these blank. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so you'll see almost all of these definitions have these properties with that start with an underscore. So I'm just going to run through them. These are all the important here. We can get rid of type. So these are all the important definitions apart from the actual software definitions. So the bin for trivia, I know will be Trivy because that's how you access the program once you install it. This is like the executable name. And that's important because we use that to check whether the software is already installed or not when we're provisioning and we want to provision it as quickly as possible. We got to use binary checks. The second thing is to come up with a description. So there's already a description here, but let's see. Like, so how would I start with Trivy and figure out the description if I didn't even know what the software was for? So the first step, definitely go to Google, and then I would look up Trivy GitHub because sometimes these software definition IDs, are kind of generic and they won't Google search you to the right page at first. But if you add GitHub afterwards, it'll bring you right to it usually. So now we can click on this Drivy, and so here's a good place to grab the description from. Of course, you want to like read it over and make sure it's human readable and it's as good as it could be. But so we already have a description here, but if that description wasn't already populated, then you could just copy this from here. So we could actually just we'll add a period. And this description is kind of long. I'd say you usually want to keep it around like a tweet size. But now we have this other one called docs. So for docs, we can kind of scan through this page. We could see right here, there's a link called documentation site. So at the documentation site, we will actually, I like this link better because it links to the latest. So let's copy this link address and we're going to place that there. And then we already have the GitHub link filled in. The GitHub link would be, this URL up here for the GitHub page. And that's going to allow us to do a lot of like automation. So if we have the GitHub repository URL, we can do a bunch of different things with that URL. And another link we're looking for is the home page. The home page is going to be the same as the documentation in this case, and that's fine. like the whole point is to just be able to have, like if we were to list this software out in like a list on a web page, we'd want like a little home button icon to link to whatever's closest to the home page of Trivy. So now that we have all this filled out, so and then the name would be Trivy, capital Trivia, or however they spell it here. Look, so it looks like they're calling it Trivia with a capital T here, but it's lowercase there. When in doubt, just capitalize it. But if their branding obviously uses all lowercase, then use lowercase for the name. So that's the name of the software. And now we have to find how to install it. So it looks like there's install directions right here. So we want, so the main thing to worry about is to make sure any piece of software can install on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux if it's supported on that platform. And most pieces of software are supported. They're all cross-platform, especially when they're built with Go or Rust or anything that compiles out to like all the different operating systems. So Brew is nice because you can install Homebrew on like nearly any Linux machine and a Mac OS machine. So this takes care of the requirement of supporting Mac OS and Linux. Of course, if there's other ways of installing it, like for instance, if you could have installed it with apt, it's nice to include those because sometimes people prefer installing with apt over Homebrew. In fact, at the top of this file, you'll see this variable called installer preferences. So basically, it determines what type of system it is. If it's a system with apt, then it first tries to install with Flatpak, then Snap, then Whalebrew, then apt, and then after that is Homebrew. So it tries to install with apt before Homebrew, and this is customizable too. But the one of the points of this installer is to be able to install with the preferred method, but also support everything else. Okay, so let's delete that apt. So when you're populating these definitions, definitely, so for apt, only use official channels too. So like if they were publishing an apt using a PPA, like a custom repository, then maybe you should shy away from that and just stick with Homebrew. But if it's already included in like the Ubuntu software list, then definitely include like an apt definition if it's there. Okay, so now that we have Mac OS and Linux satisfied because we have the Homebrew definition, what we have to do is because okay, so we can see installation. So here's what I'm talking about with the repositories. See, so they're installing like a new Yum repository for Trivy. Like the only reason why it's probably a good idea to stay away from these is because if we had one for every piece of software, we just end up with like 5,000 different repository lists, and also like all this code would just kind of bloat this definition file up. And also, the one reason why I like apt-get is because I trust the software in apt. If I'm going to go for these custom repositories, then you might as well just use Homebrew. Okay, so here we go. So it's now we see the home brew here, and now we have Pac-Man. So we have a Pac-Man. So we could do Pac-Man here. Let's see. Okay, and then port is Trivy. So port is for Mac OS. Then we have Nix. I'm actually not. We haven't implemented Nix yet, so I'm not even sure if just for Nix, what I would do is just copy this ID and put it under Nix. So we'll do Nix. Let's look for another Nix definition. Okay, so it's Nix packages.vs codium. Okay, so back to tree. And that looks about right. It looks how is as long as all the definitions, are using the same format, then we should be good. All right, so and then we have a script. Okay, so install from a script. So we can do this just for demonstration purposes. We can do script, and how we would want to define it is script Darwin, and then the same thing for script Linux. And we're defining it like this because this script is a shell script since it has this .sh at the end. So it can only be run on Mac OS or Linux. For Windows, it would be PowerShell. All right, so that's just about everything. Let's see, Pac-Man, brew. Let's see, do we have a .deb? Do we have any .deb definitions? Oh, well, we'll just skip that for now. So this looks good. So one problem is, though, we added all these definitions that were on their website, but we don't have a Windows definition yet because all these targets are for Mac OS or Linux. It's good that we found all these. It's nice to have each piece of software list as many possible official ways of installing the software as possible. But now we're missing Windows. So whenever you're missing a Windows package, first step I would take is type in chocolatey and then the name of the package and Google search that, and you'll see there's a chocolatey package for Trivy. And now we can copy this. And I mean, for the most part, I trust the chocolatey packages. You can see like number of downloads up here, and then there's these checks up here to just so you have confidence. Like if it said downloads 5, then maybe stay away from that package. But if there seems to be enough momentum with the project, then just include it. Okay, so we're going to copy Trivy, and now chocolatey is called Choco. Now this is a fully completed entry for Trivy. And at the top of this file, you'll actually see a full example. So, so here we have DNF. There's just all these examples. And like most of these things, you should only fill out if like on the installation page, it said, for instance, let's take, if it said there's a scoop package, then we would add scoop. And same for all these other targets. The main ones you should be concerned with are zipper, yay, winget, snap, then scoop, port. Pipex is what you would use to install a Python CLI. And then Pacman, which is on Arch Linux, that's the default package manager. And then npm. NPMs are installed with Volta, actually. So Volta, it's just like a way of managing the Node.js version on the system. And it has a way of installing npm CLI, like Node.js CLIs / like, from the npm JS ecosystem. And then the other ones, so Gem, and then we have Flatpak, and yeah. So just, I guess, if you're filling out software definitions, you don't have to know these extra tips, but it's, I'm just going to go over them real quick anyway. So I'm going to get rid of this one's obsolete. We don't use that. And then Docker, we don't use this one. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so you can define a when condition. So let's look at when. So in this definition for Altair, we have this when, and then semicolon, and then cask. So for any of these properties, like the ones that implement logic, not the ones that define like the URLs and the name of the project, you could say when cask. So if cask is the would be the chosen way of installing it, then it has to pass this condition. So only if there is no application already in this file path, then install with cask. And so there's also other ways of using those post fixes. So say we had a DNF package for Altair, but that only was able to be installed on Fedora and not CentOS, then you could just add the distro ID. So these postfixes support distro IDs, and then like when there's a when, it supports the installation target. You just kind of have to scroll around through the file to get like for a minute or two to get the gist of how to use these post fixes when you need to. So let's go up here. So we also have the ability to do post, and then we can also do pre. So post and pre are scripts that you could run before and after you install something. So this one right here is post, and then when it's installed with a binary on Linux, it runs this script. So you can have post and pre install hooks, and then you have the when. And then let's check out groups too. So we can have groups. So when you install KVM, it automatically ensures that these two groups are created, and then it'll also assign the current user to those two groups. And that's the default way of configuring it. Yeah, so that's for groups. So you would add the groups flag whenever there's an item that um, so for instance, in the case of Docker, when you install Docker and you want to run it without sudo privileges with your current user, you have to add that user to the Docker group. So this would take care of that. And this is a way of reducing the amount of code that's inside of all our scripts and whatnot, since we already have so many configurations and we're basically managing like thousands of open source projects. We need to basically structure everything in like a compact YAML format in order for us to like efficiently manage install Doctor, and the same for you for your fork or whatever you're doing with the project. And then if you scroll through here, you can see that you can actually make any of these definitions can be either strings or arrays. So say we're installing Altair and we wanted to like the Altair, when they type install program Altair, we want to install Altair and then the Altair CLI. So that's how, I mean, this isn't actually how Altair works, but that's how you would accomplish that. You could just add an array anywhere. And pretty much everything should support arrays. Okay. And then I think there's just a couple more things that I want to cover. Um, so service. So there might be some programs that have services that can run. So let's just browse through the. So we can just get rid of these service false entries. I'll do that. But let's find one that's populated. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, this must just be. Okay, so LXC. Let's try another one. Okay, so anyway, so this is what we started with, but here's Samba. So here's the Samba daemon. So after you install with Homebrew, you can enter, brew service start SMBD. And then on apt with apt-get, after you install Samba, you can do sudo system ctl enable smdb. Okay, those are just commands for starting the service. But then for whatever reason on DNF, the service is named SMB, and that's how you would handle that. Because this, when you have service with the DNF postfix, then that overrides it for that particular target. So when it's DNF, the service name is SMB, and when it's not, it's SMBD. Yeah, so that's about it. Hopefully that should get you started with creating custom software definitions and editing this software YML. If you have any contributions, please open pull requests. And also, if you don't feel like opening a pull request, one feature I plan on adding soon is you'll just be able to create this file called software custom.yml, and it'll combine these two files with precedence given to the software custom. So you could just add. So if you wanted to override any of these variables, So let's say installer preferences. You would just plop that into software custom, and then you could say, prefer snap over flat packs. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching.